A resignation that could have major implications for the government. Paschal Donohoe has stepped down as Finance Minister to take up a role at the World Bank. The shock move has prompted a cabinet reshuffle, with Simon Harris replacing him as Minister for Finance. It also triggers a by-election for Dublin Central. Speaking this afternoon after Cabinet, the man with the longest continual service in government had this to say about his legacy.
Through 10 budgets, I played my role in supporting our economy and our people. When I began this work, our deficit stood at €2.1 billion. In Budget 2026, we project a general government surplus of €8.4 billion, with €24 billion due to be saved in our two national wealth funds by next year.
I'm joined tonight by Fine Gael TD James Geoghegan, Sinn Féin TD and Party Finance spokesperson Pearse Doherty, Sunday Times Ireland edition political correspondent Claire Scott, and by broadcaster and Irish Daily Star columnist Eamon Dunphy. And you can send us your comments, simply scan the QR code or contact us via the WhatsApp number. James, the contrast between this morning and tonight, you've basically lost the experience, the intellect, the composure of Paschal Donohoe from the government and from your party. How is your government and the party in which you serve better off tonight with his departure?
Well, firstly, if you might, I do just want to acknowledge Paschal Donohoe's contribution to public service. It has been a remarkable one. He's served in 10 budgets as finance and public expenditure. And I think generally, whether you agreed with the policies he introduced, I think generally amongst the Irish public, he was a person that was recognised for having an awful lot of integrity. And I think we're proud that he's served as internationally as president of Eurogroup. And I think Ireland are proud again that he's achieved the position he has now. Obviously, it's not public service here in Ireland, but it's public service abroad in the new role that he has for the World Bank. So this is a very big day for Paschal. Look, for the government, it's a change. There's no escaping that. But the government has been, we are absolutely determined that we're going to implement everything that is set out in the programme for government. We launched the housing plan last week. And what Simon Harris has done today is he hasn't allowed this linger for a week or two. The decision was notified of the Cabinet this morning. He's made his decision that he's going to be Minister for Finance. For the first time ever, we're going to have a woman as Minister for Foreign Affairs and someone as experienced as Helen McEntee, who's served in so many different portfolios. And we have a new Minister for Education in Hildegard Naughton, who previously served as a Minister for Special Education, which is such a priority for this government. And we know what a challenging issue that has been. And that's why so many additional monies were dedicated both in the education budget and in the disability budget, which he previously presided over.
OK, but let me put it to you this way. This is an even bigger loss for Fine Gael than Leo Varadkar's departure 18 months ago, Simon Coveney's departure 12 months ago. This is a massive gap that is now being left in Fine Gael in terms of somebody with Paschal Donohoe's regard amongst the public, his policy experience and, very importantly, his contacts on the international stage.
Well, there is a generational change, at least within Fine Gael, at a cabinet level. Of that, there's no doubt. I mean, everyone who's at cabinet now is 50 or less. I think that's probably the first time that's happened. And if you look at our party generally, I'm one of over 20 new TDs within our parliamentary party. So Fine Gael has gone through a big change, and it's natural that will reflect itself in government as well. And that's really what's happened today. Someone who has served in government for a lengthy period of time, served over 10 budgets, has gone now to do more service. But we're going to continue on with delivering on the budget, ensuring that we maintain our public finances to the extent that Paschal was able to do for so many years, to ensure that we keep people working in this economy and that we can fund the public services that people need. OK, and Pearse, across those 10 budgets, you were the person who had to respond in each case to the proposition that Paschal Donohoe was putting to the House on each occasion. Do you hold him in some regard?
Look, I've known Paschal since we were in the Sheahan together, around the same time, and went into the Dáil roughly around the same time. I got elected just a couple of months before him. So I've known Paschal, and everybody knows across the political divide, regardless of what you think of his politics, and I have no time for the type of politics that Paschal and Fine Gael practice, and that's no secret. But he's a nice person. That's everybody gets it. So I have regard. It's a big day for Paschal. It's a big day for his family. Completely understand that. I think he made my job easy, particularly in the last budget, because his parting gift to the Irish public was a budget that left people worse off. And I couldn't understand it. Maybe the fact that he had one foot outside the door maybe allowed him to do something which I think was a major political miscalculation. But even outside of, politics and the right thing, wrong thing to do, it was the wrong thing to do for the Irish public. I think that, if you understand where people are at in terms of the cost of living crisis, you do not bring forward a budget of 9.4 billion.
Do you give him credit,
off.
though, for his contribution to economic policy in the country over the course of effectively a decade?
I think
he referenced himself going from 2 billion deficit back when he started, 8 billion surplus now, rainy day funds. His contribution, for example, during COVID, where over the course of a weekend he designed the PUP, he designed the other supports that were put in place with the head of Revenue Commissioner and the Sec-Gen of his department. His philosophy that you needed to have money in the piggy bank for those rainy days.
Yeah, I think, in particular in relation to the time of the pandemic, I think he played a very key role in relation to that, and I would have been in regular contact and correspondence with him, arguing for some of those like the supports for businesses and for the pandemic unemployment payment, and I think that was a key role. Simon Harris said today, that this didn't happen by accident, and he's right. And I've always acknowledged that of all the people who have served in cabinet over the last decade, Paschal Donohoe has had a larger imprint on Irish society than anybody else. But that's not just about the fact that we have €8.4 billion of a surplus next year. It's also the fact that we have a housing crisis that was also not an accident. It is not an accident that we have 15,000 people in homeless accommodation tonight. It is not an accident that we have so many people who are dependent on St Vincent de Paul. It's not an accident that we have higher levels of child poverty. These are also decisions that have been taken budget after budget after budget that decided to prioritise one over the other, and decisions that I'm sure that, and Paschal has defended those over the years, but I think they were the wrong calls. It was the wrong call to give tax breaks to developers, €250 million, while leaving people that are hard-pressed watching this programme wondering, is it OK to turn on the heat a wee bit because the temperature's going down? It's not. They're the wrong decision. So just as he was, he made the right calls in some areas, he definitely made the wrong calls. And I think particularly in relation to the continuation of Michael Noonan's policies of the support for the vulture funds has had a damaging effect in relation to housing in the state, we are going to live a long time as a consequence.
In the round, you have points on both sides of the balance sheet in terms of Paschal Donohoe. Claire, what kind of a gap is he leaving here within the government?
Well, I think it's incredibly substantial for the party. I think for Fine Gael in particular, he represented someone who was stable, who was strong. And as Pearse mentioned there, he was a nice person. I mean, there was unbelievable tributes from across the Dáil chamber today towards Paschal Donohoe. And I think his loss is going to be really felt there within the party in terms of the level of experience now that is lost within Fine Gael at those upper echelons of government. And also his connection with Eurogroup. I think, the way that the new role has been presented today is, he's just kind of continuing his representation of Ireland, but now in Washington. I don't see this as being as strong as his role in the Eurogroup. I mean, sitting down with ministers from across the Eurozone,
attending EU summits as well.
G7.
Everybody on his speed dial on his phone, basically.
Exactly, setting that agenda. I mean, look, I'm thinking now to the next Eurogroup meeting where, there'll be a new Eurogroup president who might decide, look, maybe we should have a look at the corporation receipts in Ireland.
Yeah, and Paschal Donohoe argued that his chairing of Eurogroup was actually a factor in us negotiating the new rate a couple of years back, and that if he hadn't been there, that wouldn't have been, I suppose, as favourable. He was able to mitigate the circumstances there.
Massively. He has this massive international reputation. He's respected here. He kind of has this broad appeal across the electorate. So I think it is a huge loss. And actually, when you talk to Fine Gael members, they kind of acknowledge that there's been a huge amount of backslapping and congratulations for Paschal today. But they are nervous. They're concerned that it has not been a good year for Fine Gael. It has not been a good year for the government. The budget hasn't been popular. Dire presidential election, just numerous issues across this year. We can carry on talking about them all night. But I think, for the most part, it's not looking good.
Eamon, the balance sheet on Paschal Donohoe, in favour or against? How do you think he'll be assessed in time?
Well, I think he will be regarded as having been a major figure in a vital Department of Finance, through a very important and difficult period. Brexit would be in the equation there in terms of how that was managed. COVID, of course. But also, I think the pressure coming from everywhere about our corporate tax and the favourable rates we were giving, and therefore making, money by, it was argued by taking unfair advantage. He was able to sell that, and he had substance, he had charm. I think, the balance sheet will be in his favour. He was a major figure, and he's left a strong economy. But it is right to acknowledge what Pearse said. The homelessness and the poverty that is there, he has to take some responsibility for that as a major figure over the last 10 years.
James, is this kind of we can go back several elections now on this repeated criticism that you've had a government that has managed an economy exceptionally well, but not a society as well. And is this going to be, we're summing up the problem here when you're assessing both Paschal Donohoe and Fine Gael, that the lack of progress in areas like housing are coming back to bite you again and again, despite having a thriving economy?
Well, we have huge challenges in this country, and there's no escaping it. Housing being the first, and I suppose at the middle end of that is a young person trying to get access to the housing ladder, and at the bottom end of that are people that are in emergency accommodation. And in the housing plan that we published last week, it is about addressing both of those challenges. Throughout the last number of years, there have been, record levels of social housing homes that have been built. We've increased from what was a trickle a number of years ago, post the bailout, the number of homes that are being built, but none of that has been sufficient to meet the demand that is there. But what I would say in terms of how every budget that Paschal had his fingers on was approached over the last 10 years, they were all ESRI checked as being progressive budgets across the OECD. They were all progressive budgets because how did we do these budgets? Well, a lot of the time, every time in each of these budgets, we ensured that when we taxed people and we gave out expenditures on the welfare side, that it was done in a proportionate way. But where the big inequality still exists in this country is in housing. But when it comes to tax and welfare and the decisions that we took an awful lot of decisions over the last 10 years that ensured that we maintained progressive budgets to the best of our ability. But clearly, we have huge challenges in housing and homelessness, and that's what this government is about resolving over the next 5 years.
And now the person in charge of managing the economy is one Simon Harris, who is also in charge of managing relations with Fianna Fáil in terms of the running of the government, also in charge of the renewal of your party. Why does Simon Harris not trust any other member of his front bench lineup of ministers to put them in as Minister of Finance?
Well, first and foremost, and you alluded to it, as a party, what we are focused on is ensuring that the 2.8 million people that are at work, that they keep their jobs, and some of the key decisions that Simon Harris, or at least some of the key issues that Simon Harris was involved in as Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade, related to some of the tariffs, the investment, all those decisions that have been taken that we know have a huge impact. I mean, there's 300,000 people that are working in this economy because of foreign direct investment. Simon Harris has made a very clear decision here that when it comes to his position, the portfolio that he's going to hold, now that a vacancy has arisen, that he's going to hold the most important portfolio as leader of Fine Gael. And I think that is brave, I think it's admirable, and I think it's really important for the government that you have the Taoiseach and you have now the Taoiseach holding the finance portfolio at a time when ultimately, let's be truthful here, when Paschal was the torchbearer for the centre must hold. We know that if the centre is going to hold in Ireland, if people are going to continue to vote for Fine Gael, they're going to see delivery. They have to see delivery. And the budget has been set now for this year. There'll be future budgets set. And it's ensuring that every single government department and every new minister and existing minister, that they deliver on the monies that have been allocated to them. And Simon Harris, as Minister for Finance, is going to have a huge influence in leading that process and ensuring that the programme for government is delivered in a way that supports workers, that delivers better public services and, crucially, delivers more homes in this country.
OK. Pearse, you must be a happier man tonight, are you? You're looking across the Dáil chamber from now on, you'll be seeing Simon Harris rather than Paschal smiling back at you and agreeing with many of your sentiments, but not really getting anywhere with him.
Yeah, look, you know, in reality, is there going to be any difference between Simon Harris and Paschal in terms of policy? Absolutely not. Like, Simon Harris has, you know, defended this budget to the hilt. He's defended all the broken promises he gave. James talks about delivering for workers. Workers are worse off in this budget than they were last year. You know, promise after promise is broken. Reducing third-level fees, he's actually increased them. You know, supporting people with energy, he's got rid of the energy credits. He argued that there would be tax cuts every single year in the election. You actually abandoned that. The tax cuts are only going to the developers and landlords.
You don't talk about jobs. You never talk about jobs in any of your budget submissions. You never talk about jobs.
James, I understand when I pointed out just on the third broken promise, because I was going to keep on going, you just wanted to interrupt me, because it's very hard to take and it's very hard to admit that you are now a party of broken promises.
You recognised Paschal's contribution to the Irish economy only a few minutes ago, but now you're getting into the mode where you have to attack everything. You recognise the contributions that you made to the economy and that there are 2.8 million people working in this economy.
I am pointing out the
facts.
It's
important to preserve their
James,
jobs.
you know, and absolutely. And you know something else?
You never talk about that.
You know, let me talk about it. Yeah. See the two people who go out tomorrow morning, who are going out to work tomorrow morning, they'll come back in. They may have to go to St Vincent de Paul to put food on the table for their young ones. That's the reality of the Ireland in 2025. And there's a lot of backslapping going on in relation to, you know, how well the economy is going and the billions and billions and billions of euros of surplus. But the economy is made up of the ordinary people, the people who go out and work and toil every.
And we're trying to protect their jobs.
But you need to also protect their livelihood. You need to protect their individuals. And it's not just about jobs as well. Let's look at other areas. Every single day, this government is breaking the law in relation to children with disabilities. Every single day, assessment of needs. These are the real issues that people every single day feel that your government is failing them.
The reason we had the level of public finances that we had in the Brexit scenario, in the pandemic scenario, even exiting the bailout, the reason we had the public finances that we had to deliver services. Yes, we need to be able to deliver more services. This budget was very much a budget about service. When it comes to disability, there was an increase of 20% spending in services, an additional 600 million euro. The reason we have those...
An additional 600 million euro disabilities. That's just nonsense. Seriously, nobody believes that.
The reason we have additional monies is because we have managed the economy well, that there are taxpayers in this country paying tax. You want to abolish taxes. You want to abolish local property tax, carbon tax, but you won't tell people where that monies are going to come to fund the public services. That's what we defend. They're the values that Paschal has done. That's the values we're going to continue to defend.
And you'll defend that, and you'll defend that in elections. I show every single year where the alternatives come. I make no apologies that I want to take the burden off of working people and actually place the burden
off. To spend the whole rainy
I didn't interrupt you. I did not, and I want to put the burden on people who have broader shoulders, who have wealth. But see, one thing I can't defend. I can't defend boasting about billions of euro surplus when people are going hungry. I can't defend that when people can't heat their homes at night. I can't defend it when so many people are going without houses. I know houses can't be built overnight because you're in government for 14 years and the housing crisis has got worse every single year. Every single year. House prices have gone up, rents have gone up, homelessness have gone up, child homelessness have gone up. This is supposed to be a bloody republic. This is not the type of republic that I am anyway proud of when we are talking about billions of euro for some rainy day when it is absolutely pouring down on ordinary people left, right and centre.
But we do know if you had your hands on the tiller, you'd have squandered all of the monies. Because we know what your pre-budget
I'll just bring in Claire here, gentlemen. Thank you. Claire, that rainy day, though, could be just around the corner. I mean, there are plenty of signals now coming from the United States that the tech bubble is potentially going to burst, that tech stocks are highly inflated, that effectively the Trump administration is kind of trying to, hide away what's actually happening in the economy. If things go wrong there, it very quickly has a ripple effect across here. What are we expecting from Simon Harris in terms of his economic ideology, his view of how the public finances should be managed?
Well, this is the thing, because...
do we know?
I think, James and Pearse have alluded to there's going to be continuation of Paschal's prudence with Simon Harris. Just, my experience over the last couple of budgets with Simon Harris is that he is inclined to spend a bit more and pushes for increased spending. when you look, I think we go back to the discussion around hospitality and the VAT rate for that. You look at the comments from Paschal around the time of the summer economic statement, and he was kind of alluding to the fact that this is going to, we're going to have to compromise in other areas of the budget if we're going to go down this VAT rate for hospitality. And meanwhile, both Peter Burke and Simon Harris were really pushing for this in most of their public statements. You go back again previously to the other budget, the giveaway budgets that we've seen previously really heavily being pushed by Simon Harris. It will be very interesting to see if he continues on that path when it's his own election, when it's his own...
when he's actually the one in charge. And it might be a very different economic picture that he's actually managing.
And bear in mind, we're a good bit off an election.
We're a long way away.
And he might not be inclined to do so.
So, Eamon, Simon Harris's plan, deliver the next two budgets, then become Taoiseach for the final 2 years of this administration. That cruises us through to a November 2019 general election. Do you see that plan working out for him?
No. I think the money that Paschal Donohoe has bequeathed us are left. I think the problems of homelessness, 5,000 children plus are in that, plus the 15,000. I don't want to live in a society where we have a rainy day fund and the number of people living without a home that we have at the moment. And poverty is elsewhere as well. Establishing a decent society should be a priority. Paschal Donohoe came at a time when we were broke. The 14 years you refer to, they've been in power, which is incredible, and will probably end because Fianna Fáil have their own problems. So this coalition that is running this country now, I think their days are numbered.
Pearse, certainly something that could, perhaps preempt such an outcome would be, let's see what happens in the by-elections. Do you feel under pressure now that Sinn Féin are going to have to put in a very strong performance, not one, but two by-elections, win at least one of those seats, if not both?
No, I don't feel under pressure at all. I think there's a huge opportunity here.
I feel under pressure in Dublin Central to win a seat?
No, I genuinely think there's a huge opportunity here. I think there's an opportunity here where Sinn Féin can win both those seats. That's going to be our job. That's going to be what we're going to go out and campaign for. It is the best way, in my view, how people can send a signal that they want to replace this government. And look, we've plenty of people on the ground who are going to be very energetic and enthusiastic about these campaigns. So we'll be selecting our candidates shortly. And yeah, it's a huge opportunity. Like, you're a year on from
and will you be
the last general
Janice
election.
Boylan again? Like, we ran with Mary Lou in the general election?
They're going to be decisions for the local area through the conventions, and people will have the right to put their own names forward. And people, I'm sure, are thinking about those things right here, right now, at this point in time. But yeah, look, there's a number of candidates in each of the constituency that we could run. But we're in a good position. We topped the poll in both constituencies with Mary Lou and with Mairead Farrell. And I think that this is a real opportunity, again, to secure a big vote for Sinn Féin.
For the government parties to have any chance of winning either by-election, you're going to need to have a really strong transferability between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Do you see that being a formal agreement that you're going to come to, James, or are you just going to leave it up to the voters to decide?
Well, that decision is probably a bit above my pay grade, but I mean, what I would say is I think, in fairness to Pearse, he has fairly laid out the challenge there for government parties. I mean, we're going to be fighting in, or Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, presumably they'll put up a candidate as well, are going to be fighting in two constituencies where Sinn Féin topped the poll in both, and there's only one seat available. And I know a few things about by-elections when there's only one seat available and the challenge that is. I mean, government parties tend not to win, just to be blunt about it. But we're going to put forward a very competitive candidate in both constituencies. That there's no doubt. Our party will be out strong campaigning for the both. But look, it's going to be a very challenging election. But we're not going to let this distract us from the work of government, because I think that's what people want us to do.